Sunday brunch was supposed to feel warm, indulgent, effortless. At least, that's what it looked like for every other family in the restaurant. Sunlight poured in through high glass windows, painting gold streaks across white tablecloths. Laughter bubbled from nearby tables, the clinking of glasses and forks creating a soft, cheerful hum. But our table felt like a different season entirely, cold, cloudy, and waiting for a storm. I arrived last, stepping hesitantly toward the familiar faces that never quite felt like home. My mother, Marla, tapped her manicured nails on the table, her mouth tightening the moment she saw me. "There she is," my brother, Evan, muttered, dragging out the words like I was a child who couldn't follow instructions. My sister, Chloe, didn't even look up. She just sighed dramatically, the same way she did anytime I walked into a room, as if my existence made oxygen harder to breathe. I slid into my seat and forced a small smile. Sorry traffic was. My mother waved her hand, cutting me off. "You're always sorry, Lena. Just sit. We already ordered drinks." Of course they had. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't really expected, only tolerated. The waiter set a glass of sparkling water in front of me, and as I reached for it, something in my mother's expression shifted. She leaned back, crossed her arms with the overly polished confidence of a woman who never faced consequences, and let out a soft, amused exhale. Then she said it, "You're lucky we even include you. Pity runs deeper than inheritance here." The table fell silent. Even the sunlight felt harsher, like it had heard something it shouldn't have. Heat crawled up my neck, blooming across my cheeks. My fingers tightened around the cold glass until my knuckles whitened. Chloe let out a muffled laugh, the kind she tried to hide behind a sip of her mimosa. Evan's lips curled into a smirk, quiet, cruel, complicit. I swallowed hard, the words sticking to my ribs like splinters. "Mom, that was unnecessary," I whispered, her brows lifted, feigning innocence. "Oh, honey, don't be dramatic. It's a joke. You know how sensitive you are." The old familiar line. The one she always used when she wanted to hurt me without looking guilty. The waiter returned with plates of eggs Benedict, pancakes drizzled with syrup, cut fruit, everyone's favorites. Except mine, no one had bothered to ask what I wanted. They never did. Chloe launched into a story about her promotion. Evan talked loudly about his latest real estate investment, and my mother nodded along proudly, glowing with the kind of maternal pride I had never once felt from her. The conversation flowed around me like I wasn't even there. I sat quietly, pushing food around my plate, feeling something inside me stretch thinner and thinner, one tug at a time. Eventually, something snapped. I reached into my purse, pulled out a few bills, and placed them neatly beside my untouched plate. "I have to go," I murmured. None of them paused, none of them protested. Not a single head turned. I stood, my legs trembling beneath me, and walked away before the tears could climb any higher. As I stepped outside, the sun hit my face warm, bright, almost comforting. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't leaving the brunch. I was leaving the version of myself who believed I had to stay. The apartment felt too quiet when I returned from brunch, the kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes every breath sound louder than it should. I tossed my keys onto the counter and sank onto the couch, staring at the blank TV screen as if it might offer answers. It didn't. Instead, my mother's words replayed like a cruel loop. "Pity runs deeper than inheritance here." I had always known I was the outsider, but hearing the reason spoken aloud so casually, so shamelessly, felt like a bruise spreading beneath the skin. I leaned forward, burying my face in my hands, and sat there until the ache dulled enough for me to breathe. Eventually, I stood. When the world felt too heavy, I always turned to the one place that never judged me. My father's old storage boxes. I kept them in a small closet, tucked away like a shrine to the only parent who'd ever loved me without conditions. I pulled them out one by one, dust rising softly in the sunlight. Inside were his notebooks, his ties, his cologne that still carried the faintest trace of cedarwood. My fingers skimmed through layers of memories, birthday cards, receipts, photographs of us fishing, the kind of simple moments my mother never cared for. Then at the bottom of the last box, I found something I didn't recognize. A leather binder, old, weathered, and unmistakably his. My heart thudded as I opened it. Inside were documents neatly organized and labeled, and an envelope with my name written in his handwriting. Lena, my breath caught. I slid the letter out carefully, afraid the paper might crumble. His handwriting was shaky, but still warm somehow. Lena, if you're reading this, it means time caught me quicker than expected. I've made decisions your mother won't agree with, but they are mine, and they are for you. A father knows his children, even when others refuse to see them clearly. My throat tightened. What I leave you is not a handout. It's recognition of your quiet strength, your integrity, your heart. I trust you'll use it well. He signed it simply, Love, Dad. I pressed the letter against my chest, tears spilling freely now, hot, heavy, necessary. When I finally looked back at the binder, I saw the truth laid out in numbers and signatures. Investment accounts, property shares, bonds, a trust. One that was meant for me. But it had never reached me, because according to a stamped page at the back, it had been relinquished by me. Signed off, declined, except I had never seen these documents before. My name was written in a signature that wasn't mine. A chill crawled down my spine. My mother always handled the estate paperwork after Dad died. She had insisted it was too painful for us. She had insisted I wouldn't understand the legal jargon. She had insisted I accept what she gave me, which was nothing. My hands shook as I turned page after page. There were emails between my mother and the lawyer, clipped and businesslike. We can argue that Lena has no interest. She won't fight it. Handle the trust quietly. She doesn't need to know. My vision blurred. It wasn't neglect. It wasn't an oversight. It was betrayal, cold, calculated, and intentional. They had stolen not just money, but the last gift my father ever tried to give me. I closed the binder slowly, the truth solidifying inside me like iron. My family had taken what wasn't theirs. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to take something back. The next morning, I woke with a strange sense of clarity, like the fog that had hovered over my life for years had finally lifted. Betrayal still pulsed like a bruise under the skin, but beneath it was something new, resolve. The leather binder lay open on my dining table, papers neatly arranged the way I'd left them. Seeing my father's handwriting felt like a silent encouragement, a reminder that he had believed in me even when no one else in the family ever had. I made the first phone call before I could talk myself out of it. Hello, a warm, older voice answered. Mr. Hartman, this is Lena Grant, my father's. There was a sharp inhale. Lena, of course. I've been expecting this call someday. A shiver ran through me. You have. Your father told me that if anything ever seemed off after his passing, I should be here for you. I clutched the phone tighter. I found the trust he set aside for me. They hid it. A long pause, heavy and knowing. Come to my office. Bring everything you found. By afternoon, I was sitting across from Daniel Hartman, my father's longtime business partner. His gray hair, gentle face, and tired eyes made him look like someone who had carried secrets longer than he should have. He laid the binder out carefully. I suspected Marla might override some instructions. He admitted. But this is fraud. That word sent a chill through me. He motioned to the forged signature. They underestimated you, Lena. Your father never did. I swallowed hard. What do we do now? Daniel leaned back. We reclaim what's yours, legally, quietly, thoroughly. For the next hour, we went through documents line by line. Daniel called in an estate lawyer. He trusted one who didn't flinch when she saw the binder. This is a textbook case of estate manipulation, she said, adjusting her glasses. And frankly, a sloppy one. They didn't expect you to look for anything. They never did. I was supposed to remain the invisible daughter. The compliant daughter. The daughter who didn't fight back. But not anymore. Over the next weeks, I worked with Daniel and the lawyer assembling every needed piece of evidence. Emails, statements, financial records, even notes my father had written about forming the trust. I learned more about estate law in a month than most people do in a lifetime. And through it all, I felt myself changing, standing straighter, speaking more firmly, seeing the world with sharper edges. Work became easier too. My art, usually quiet, emotional pieces suddenly burst with fire and strength, selling faster than they ever had. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was rising. The legal process moved faster than I expected. My mother and siblings didn't know what was happening yet. Everything was handled through discreet filings, sealed documents, and scheduled hearings they weren't notified about until the truth was undeniable. 3 months after I'd found the binder, I sat in a wood-paneled courtroom, hands folded tightly together, as the judge reviewed the evidence. My mother's forged letters, my siblings' fraudulent declarations, my father's original, untouched instructions. Finally, the judge looked up. "The trust belongs to a mess, Lena Grant," he said. "All withheld assets are to be returned, effective immediately." My breath caught. It was done. I had reclaimed what they stole, not out of greed, not out of spite, but because it was mine. As I walked out of the courtroom into the crisp afternoon air, the victory didn't feel loud or triumphant. It felt quiet, steady, solid, the kind of triumph my father would have smiled at. The kind of triumph my family would never see coming. 6 months of court rulings, asset transfers, stunned phone calls from estate lawyers, and desperate attempts from my mother to clarify things with me, calls I never answered. 6 months of finally breathing without feeling like I needed permission. I never planned to face them again, but closure has a way of calling you back to the scene of the wound. So I made a reservation at the same brunch restaurant where my mother had once smiled and told me I was included only out of pity. This time, I was the one choosing the table, the same one by the windows, with sunlight pouring across the linen like liquid gold. I arrived early, not because I feared being late, but because I wanted to soak in the moment. The quiet confidence that filled me like air. The waiter recognized me and led me to my seat, expecting company today. He asked politely. "Yes," I said, and for once, the word felt like it belonged to me. When my family walked in 10 minutes later, they looked different, smaller. My brother's usual swagger was gone. My sister clutched her purse like it was a shield, and my mother, Marlo, walked with a stiffness that didn't come from age but from being forced, for once, to meet me on my terms. The sight of me sitting at the head of the table made her stop short. "Lena," she said, lips tight. "You look well." "I am," I replied. "Please sit." They did, exchanging glances like they were unsure whether this was an ambush or an invitation. Maybe a little of both. Menus opened, drinks were ordered. My mother cleared her throat several times, as if searching for the perfect angle from which to approach me. Finally, she tried. "I suppose you think this legal situation has changed things between us." I held her gaze calmly, the way Daniel once told me powerful people do. It didn't change anything. It just revealed everything. A flush crept up her neck. "We did what we thought was best. You were never practical. You always dreamed too much. Dad didn't think so." Silence heavy, undeniable. Chloe shifted uncomfortably. Evan stared at the table. The waiter arrived with plates, placing them in front of us with practiced grace. My mother lifted her fork but paused when I didn't touch mine. "I invited you here for a reason," I said, folding my napkin carefully. "And not to argue, not to punish you, just to say something that needed to be said." Their eyes snapped to me, nervous, expectant, cornered. "You spent years making me believe I was less, that I was lucky you kept me around, that pity was the only reason I had a place at the table." I let the words settle, each one built from years of swallowed hurt. "But it turns out I didn't need your pity, and the inheritance you tried to bury, it wasn't just money. It was my father's belief in me." My mother's hand trembled. "Lena," I shook my head softly, no anger, no heat, just truth. "I don't need anything from you anymore, not acceptance, not approval, and definitely not pity." I stood, placing my card on the bill. My voice was steady as glass. "You told me pity runs deeper than inheritance, but you were wrong." I stepped back from the table, meeting each of their stunned faces. "Inheritance runs deeper than your pity ever could, and I finally know my worth, with or without you." I turned and walked toward the sunlight pouring through the doorway. No one called after me, and for the first time in my life, the silence felt like freedom.